So this is the turbo for the 2-litre engine. I've already rebuilt it, as in put new seals in it. You take like the housings off and then the actual compressor wheel out, and I've put new seals inside it. And I've upgraded to a 360-degree bearing, which apparently is good for 2-bar boost. It's just a Garrett T3, so it's nothing too fancy. Similar sort of thing that's on the old Cosworth engine, I believe, like the 2 litres that they have in them. So just a standard T3, old sort of style. It's not water cooled. It's literally just oil cooled as well as lubricated. So I'll probably have to put an oil cooler on this engine when I do get it going, because obviously the oil will get very hot going through there. And that's something that I had to do on the other 1.3 engine as well, which helped a lot with the heat. So I've got some gaskets for it here, so I can bolt that all together and then bolt it onto the engine. So this is just a standard internal wastegate turbo. There is the wastegate there, and this is sort of the housing for the flap. So basically when it's spooling up, the flap covers this hole, so you get all of the exhaust gases going through the turbo, make it spool up. When it gets up to boost, the wastegate opens this flap here, so it basically bypasses the exhaust fumes through this sort of wastegate flap housing and then straight out the exhaust, so it can monitor, well, it can regulate the amount of boost pressure going through the turbo so it won't overboost. So I've just flipped the wastegate rod on there. I do need to get a clip, or probably just an R clip to be fair, to hold that. And so now I can just bolt it up. Now there's this little sort of 90-degree, well, a bit over 90-degree elbow that comes off the back. It's the way the turbo sits in the engine. It's quite tight getting the exhaust back to the centre of the van, as that's where the exhaust goes, sort of in between the cross member and the body. So I thought I'd lost this, but I actually had it in my garage at home. Luckily I kept it. You know when you just keep things and you're not really sure why. This is why. So I've got this. It just makes life a bit easier to adapt to the exhaust. This is the flange off the original exhaust, but there was only a little bit of it left anyway, so I can use the flange and just mate it up to the downpipe which I already had for the 1.3. So I'm just going to stick that on as well, which I have a gasket for it, and then I can bolt it onto the engine. So on the top of these, they actually have a nice little lock tab on the top. So as you can see, these sides bend round the casting, and then this one you just tap up, and then that stops it from undoing. Just like that. So now we move on to the exciting bit, well, semi-exciting bit, of bolting the turbo onto the engine, which means it's officially a 2-litre turbo. Hey. That went well. Now I can just do it up. So it's a similar situation with these. Little tab you just bend down, and that locks the nut in place so it can't undo. So I'm just looking through some of the stuff that I've got in the boxes from when I took it apart all those years ago. This is the oil feed to the turbo. Comes directly off the oil pump, which is why this is like a turbo specific pump, and it runs up the back there behind the turbo and then up and then into the inlet there. But I'm going to just take this away and clean this up and give it a repaint as it's looking a bit worse for wear. The other thing that runs up there is there's this coolant pipe. It goes from the thermostat there, runs behind and sticks up out about here, which goes to something. I expect actually it probably goes to the heater matrix, thinking about that, because as you can see on the van, there's the pipes there. So that must be to the heater matrix. I will get a new pipe because that is a bit crusty. And I completely forgot, I got a nice one made up of stainless. So when the heater matrix pipes are notoriously bad for rusting out on a Maestro. So you can see one of them here, the other end, they're sort of about, I don't know, 6 inches long. Sort of both of them go down together, do a little sort of bend, and then they have a plate which bolts to the actual matrix itself. It's like a plate with some O-rings that sit inside it. So it's quite an intricate design. I tried making my own many years ago and it didn't work and ended up with coolant in all in the footwell. But I went for about 2 sets of these sort of pipes for the matrix because they always rust out. So you get like a second-hand pair, clean them up, and then within about a year they rust out again because they're just normal mild steel. So I've got a nice stainless one now, and when I got those, I actually the guy that made them actually used this pipe off my engine as a pattern. So in return, he did me a real good rate on both of them because this is actually, believe it or not, in very good shape compared to most of them. So it's actually got the full length, which is what he wanted in the place of the bracket. So I can bolt the nice shiny boy on. So at least I'll take this back and refurb it. The other thing, there's I think there was once upon a time a heat shield on here. So it sits up under the turbo there, and it basically just protects the oil drain, I think, because there's a right angle that comes off the bottom here to the drain there. So I think it just protects that. So I'll get some sort of something made up for that piece of alley or something and just rivet that on, and then I can put that on as well. Here is the aforementioned shiny boy. Nice stainless steel pipe there, so that'll just stop it rusting out ever. So basically what happens is the rest of the car and all the engine and everything will rust away, and there'll just be this pipe left. I've also just stuck the oil filler pipe on there, just to get it out of the way of the, just to get it out of the box really, and get it all on in one place. So it's starting to look a bit more like a engine now, rather than just a block. Obviously a turbo manifold, inlet manifold. I've just stuck the intercooler pipe on there as well, just to stop stuff falling into the turbo more than anything. Got the shiny pipe on there now as well, hiding in there. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Looking good. Like I said, I've a few bits and pieces just going through brackets and stuff I want to clean up and maybe paint them up just before I bolt them on, and then go from there. The new clutch, it fits, so it's basically a stage 1 performance clutch. So I can't remember if I've said, but I want to run more power than the standard Maestro Montego turbo lump, which is about 150. I'm looking more at the 200 mark, which apparently is easy, just turn up the boost a little bit and, you know, play around with the ignition, that sort of thing. So I wanted a clutch that could handle it. Now, some people say it will, the standard one will handle it. Some people say it won't. So there was one avenue you can go down, which is fitting a T16 flywheel and then the L series diesel clutch. Now that may have been easy a while ago, but nowadays they don't come up for sale as much as they used to, because the T series is quite an old engine now as well. You know, I'm talking out of like Rover Coupe type engine, you know, 16 valve turbo. And in fact, I did see one online on eBay, and it was identical to the flywheel on this, so it must have been an early one or something. So I bought an L series clutch just in case. Didn't fit, fine, sent it back. But this one is a high torque stage 1. So I figured I may as well get it's advertised as a performance clutch. Don't know if it is or not, so I figured I may as well get something which says it's better rather than just a standard one, and it wasn't too much more expensive, to be honest, like, I don't know, 20% more maybe, if that. So I figured I may as well fit that instead of just a standard one. So the other thing, I think it was one of the guys that commented on one of the other videos, said about the clutch cover bolts. I think he had issues with them snapping or something. So I managed to, because mine didn't have any at all, so it didn't come with a clutch. The gearbox and engine was separate. So I just managed to find some old clutch cover bolts from a different car. Figured they'd be fine. But the flywheel on this, they're threaded out, but they're actually imperial thread, so like UNF. And I just assumed it would be metric, because everything else on the engine is metric, I think, if I remember rightly. But for some reason, this flywheel has got imperial threads, unless it's from the old. I think they used the O series in Princess or something like that, so maybe it's just a throwback from that. So I managed to find some imperial, but I wanted high tensile because I have stories of them snapping. So these are 12.9 tensile rating. Your standard bolt's about 8.8. So we'll whack them in and, well, put the clutch on with the alignment tool, whack them in, torque them up, and then I can put the gearbox on the engine. I haven't actually got the engine to gearbox bolts, because like I said, it came separately, so it just didn't come with any. But I got these for temporary. I can always swap them out one by one when it's in there. That's not an issue. So let's try and get this on here. Not sure how easy this is going to be. Didn't quite think that through. It's going to pull the engine down. So I need to put something under there. Straight away a second ago. Oh man, literally. Went flop straight in a second ago. Come on. Like that. Get something in there. Just to hold it for a sec. That's it. There she blows. One engine and gearbox with clutch connected for the first time in God knows how many years. Nice. So that's the engine and gearbox connected for the first time in God knows how many years. As in, it's now got a clutch which is connected to the gearbox. So, and when you try and turn the diff, I haven't got any drive shafts in it, but it doesn't turn, so that means it's in the splines. So happy days. Like I said, I'll temporarily chuck something in just to get it in there. I'll see what we got lying around until I can get the proper nuts and bolts for it. I'm hopefully buying a job lot of specifically Maestro turbo bits from a guy who's sold his, but he's still got loads of spares. So I'm hoping there'll be some of the stuff, because he's broken them over the years. So I'm waiting to meet up because he lives the other side of the country. So at some point I can get that. It's, it has drive shafts and hopefully all the pieces that I'll need for the rest of the puzzle. But I have put a couple other things on, as you can see. The timing belt covers there. The tensioner, I had to get a nice Allen head bolt for in there, because otherwise, again, it was missing the bolt for that, so that should do the job. Tension wise, I'm not sure, I've just done it tight-ish for now, but I'll get that properly checked before I set it off. Other than that, I think it's pretty much ready to go in. So I've just nipped up all the engine mounts, well, the three that I've got. So the gearbox one at the side, the gearbox one at the back, and then the engine mount in the front there. So now I can just let the weight off it. It should just settle. There we go. She's in. So all going well, that should be the last time that it's put in. Obviously anything can happen, but so now I can just button up everything, plumb in the engine basically, and make some progress with that, put some bits back on, see where everything goes, see what I can do about the exhaust, loads of stuff really, put the wiring in, and yeah, shouldn't be too far off for a fire up now, in theory. Sweet, let's get this out of the way. You can stand back and admire. Get stuff out of the way of the unit as well. So now it's just, instead of having an engine hanging around, it's obviously in here out of the way now. I did, there's a couple of things I'm waiting for on the back of the engine there, which I was going to do before I put it in. It looks a little bit tight, but I should be able to get up from underneath. Tons of room around the front, but fit the biggest intercooler in the world, I reckon there. But yeah, because it's only an 8 valve, it doesn't take up too much room. Because obviously the head's not very big. Yeah, happy days. It actually used a different set of holes on the cross member there as well, which are there for it, which is good. That means they just use the same cross member on every Maestro, I guess, which is handy. That's the good thing about just doing an engine swap, which is from the same family of cars, vans in this case. But yeah, I guess it's funny that they use the same, the sort of front end of the van must be literally identical to the cars. So that's pretty good, because they never fitted the 2 litre to a van, I don't think. But however, I'm pretty sure the gearbox, to be fair, was the same as diesel ones possibly. But yeah, happy days. One engine in van. So now the engine's bolted in, I was just working on getting the gear linkage on. So I've got it on that end, which is pretty simple. There's a pin on one of those and then the other bit bolts on there, as you can see. And we tried it already to line it up. So it lines up, and what I had to do is make a bracket to mount this rubber piece at the back, which just holds it in place. So it's all connected, it goes in all the gears, which is good because I've never actually been through the gears on that gearbox. So I've made 2 halves of this bracket, and now I've just made a piece that will go over the top. That's why the bolts are a bit longer, so I can squeeze it in and squeeze it together nicely like that, and then put that piece on, and then that's done. So there we go, that holds it all together and sort of braces it in a cradle. So let's see what the gear change is like. So I've put the gator and bits and carpet and that, which sort of fit off the old one, which is good. So to be fair, it's the same sort of height as it used to be, which is good. The same sort of position, but there we are. Into gear, I'd say probably the same sort of throw, and I actually had a short shifter on the old gearbox, which is like the Volkswagen style. You can just make a short shifter pretty easily by putting an extra plate of metal on there. And it's pretty similar to what that was before. It was blimey, massive. I'd probably say it comes back a little bit further. But yeah, and reverses over here now. It used to be like the Volkswagen, you push it down and go up like that. So this is actually the same as my daily driver Rover 400, which has a PG1 box as well. And I also managed to reuse the Volkswagen clutch cable. So I bought a new clutch cable, which is apparently for a 2 litre Maestro Montego, but the cable on the end was completely different. But this one is connected and worked. Well, it moves the lever. I obviously can't tell if it's disengaging it properly, but looks like it works. So there we go. Got gears. Bam 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 ba 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 su tu tu ba 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 su tu tu ba su tu tu ba su tu 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 ba su tu tu tu